What's your favorite kind of pocket clip on a knife? Do you like wire clips? Do you like 3D milled clips, stamped clips? Let me know in the comments section down below. How's it going, everybody? I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And if you got a favorite clip in mind, make sure to mention it. And while you're down there, go ahead, fist bump the like button, but not too hard. It's got delicate fingers. Today we're talking about this guy. This is the WeThug XL, a knife that is the second coming from designer Matthew Christensen, lent to me, by the way, by a good friend of mine from my work. Shout out to you, Sean. You know who you are. Thank you. But I'm excited. I'm excited because I wanted to check one of these out. Now, not only do I have one to check out, I've got two. But I've been sitting on these knives for the last couple of weeks because all of a sudden I got swamped. It's like I go from not having anything to make content on to all of a sudden having so much. I love having that problem, by the way. If you have a knife that you're interested in having me review, hit me up. My email is in the description down below. That's Rollshambo.edc at gmail.com. Now, even though I haven't done any prior content on this, I have had it in my possession for the last couple of weeks. And so we're going direct to grail or garbage. We're aiming to put knives on our leaderboard. That link is in the description as well. Here's how it works. Grail or garbage consists of 5 categories. Those categories are materials, ergonomics, fidget factor, the lock, and fit and finish. Each category is worth 10 points. After we're done scoring them, we'll add up those points and we will place it on this leaderboard. This is the WeThug XL. All right, so check this out. We have not one, but 2 WeThug XLs to check out today. I am going to be ranking these all as the same knife, and here's why. Because while this one is titanium with carbon fiber, this one is full flame titanium, and they cost the same price. So this is cool because we get to see how consistent We Knife Company really is. First up is materials. Now, materials is based off of a couple different factors. The scoring for materials is based off of availability as well as how much does it cost. And that's because, you know, the higher the price, the better the materials we expect. And for availability, you know, especially in the cases of custom knives, I'm going to be a little bit easier on the materials because custom knives are different. Now, these are not custom knives. These are production knives from We, and both of these cost $342. So if you want the flamed titanium, or if you want the brushed titanium with carbon fiber, and this is a marbled carbon fiber, you will pay $342. Now, personally, I actually prefer the less expensive version at the $300 price range. The brushed titanium on these looks absolutely phenomenal. But let's go ahead and talk about these. The only difference between these two is that this one is full flame titanium and this one is a brushed titanium and carbon fiber mix. Otherwise, they're the same. So again, carbon fiber, brushed titanium pocket clip. That's a stamped variation. And of course it has titanium backspacer as well. It's running on bearings and the blade is 20 CV. That's CPM 20 CV, extremely similar, if not the same as Bowler M390, which is a phenomenal steel. This one just happens to be made right here in the good old US of A. Ultimately, these materials are about as good as you can get in the $200 to, I would say, $400 price range, if not higher. But it is an expensive knife. I actually would have liked to have seen these priced more around the $250 to $300 range instead of the $300 to $350 range. That's just my personal opinion on these, but you can't hold it against it because at the end of the day, these materials are definitely premium. It's just the price point that I wish was a little bit lower. I think that 7 out of 10 is a fair score for materials. The next category is going to be ergonomics. How does it feel in the hand? Is it comfortable to grip? Can you choke up on it? How about switching up your grips? Well, this is really, really good as far as the ergonomics are concerned. And let's start with the grip. A natural saber grip works well, although there is no jimping. We're seeing this a lot these days where knife makers and manufacturers just skip the jimping. They think it's not needed, but I personally would have really liked to have seen that. And while the spine of the blade right here where your thumb will rest does feel natural, it is slick because it's so well polished. So being polished means that, yes, it's comfortable. It's most definitely not a hot spot. It's very comfortable, but you don't get great grip there. And I would have liked to have seen some jimping there if I'm being completely honest, especially when there is no texture on the handle scales to add that extra grip. Also, you cannot choke up on this knife very well. That is a little bit of a cutout, but that's more of a sharpening choil than a finger choil. There is a bit of a plunge grind issue here. There's no way that you'd be able to sharpen this without getting a bit of a smile right there next to the plunge grind. As far as everything else is concerned though, the handle scales feel great. There are no hot spots on there, and when you flip up the grip, it feels natural in a reverse grip as well. What's really interesting to me is that on the stamped clip, when you do a reverse grip, your finger naturally rests right there against the swoop of the pocket clip, which is phenomenal. That feels really good. The pocket clip is not a hot spot at all. And when you put the knife in your hand in a normal way, or even in a reverse grip, you don't feel that pocket clip. In fact, the pocket clip does help you lock in a reverse grip, which is kind of interesting to me. Ultimately, the jimping is a bit of a bummer for me, or rather the lack thereof. And I do kind of wish that we had some sort of texturizing on the handle scales to make up for it, to add more grip, but we don't. So all in all, I'm very impressed. The fact that the pocket clip actually helps with ergonomics in a reverse grip is something that I haven't really seen before, and it's going to get an extra point for that. For all of those reasons, ergonomics is a solid 8 out of 10. Moving on to my favorite category, fidget factor. And the reason why it's my favorite category is because, in my opinion, good fidget factor comes from good components and good tuning rather than how many deployment options it has. Now, how much I enjoy those deployment options is a whole nother story. Thumb studs are not my favorite deployment option. It's not that I hate them, it's just that I'm generally not a big fan of them. I'd rather see deployment holes personally, or even front flippers for that matter. But the thumb studs on here work really good. And why do they work well? 2 reasons. The first reason is that the detent is perfectly dialed in, and it's not like I just got a one-off over here. This one is also perfectly dialed in on that detent, so the moment you break detent, it is flying out, and you don't have to give it a terrible amount of pressure to break it. It's just nice and crisp. Reverse flick works well. Thumb flick works well. If you want to do one of these guys where you slow roll it out, that works well. And it makes a really nice click pop sound when it deploys, which sounds awesome. And believe it or not, acoustics do lend to the fidget factor. I do wish that there had been a front flipper on here. I think that it would have really put it over the top, at least for me, because I do find thumb studs to be a little bit boring. And so while the fidget factor, in my opinion, is better than average, it's also not amazing, despite the fact that it's running on bearings. The bearings on here are smooth, but you do feel a tiny bit of grit. And it's not like there's anything in the pivot itself that causes that. You just feel it. And I think that that's something that would wear itself in over time. I don't think these have been carried a whole lot, so I'm not really sure what breaking in looks like on these, but I do wish that action had been a little bit smoother. The detent is great. The action is what I would expect out of a ball bearing knife, but I have definitely felt smoother, and the acoustics are good. And for those reasons, it's going to be getting a 7 out of 10 for fidget factor. Next up, let's talk about the lock. Now, the lock is, of course, a frame lock. It's a titanium frame lock, and the lockup is good. We're looking somewhere around 35%. It's a very confident lockup. There is no lock rock. There's no blade play left or right, up and down. That's good. And in the fully closed position, it is pretty dang centered. I won't say it's perfectly centered, but it's definitely factory centered, and so I don't have any qualms or issues there. It is a frame lock, and frame locks are what I prefer over a liner lock, and this one does have a lock bar insert and steel lock bar insert and over travel stop, so it's good. It's not amazing, and it is what I would expect out of a frame lock at this price point. So for those reasons, it's going to be getting a 7 out of 10 for the lock. Lastly, we got to talk about fit and finish. And fit and finish is about the overall design language as well as how well manufactured it was. Let's talk about the manufacturing first. The manufacturing from We Knife Company is great. If you've ever bought a We Knife or held a We Knife, you know what I'm talking about. They get the fit and finish right. The manufacturing is on point. There's no extra edges that are sharp that shouldn't be sharp. Now, I have one tiny little complaint about the manufacturing. This pocket clip is stiff. There is very little to no flex in that pocket clip, and that's just something that bothers me. For a stamped variety, even with titanium, I actually do want there to be a little bit more flex than this, and so that's something that I think could have been improved on this one. As far as the design language is concerned, whether if you get the brushed titanium or this carbon fiber brushed titanium mix, that brushed titanium looks phenomenal. It is not showing up that great on camera, but it looks really, really good. And it's one of the reasons why I think the one I would go for would actually be the less expensive model. I won't call it cheaper because $300 isn't cheap, but the less expensive model that is this brushed gray titanium on both sides is just calling my name. And I say calling my name because yes, I do want one of these. I like the fact that the blade is a compound grind with a nice deep hollow as well as a flat grind up here and a swedge at the top. That's really cool. I'm really happy to see that. I think that it would have served it well had there actually been a finger cutout or a finger choil right there, because it would have made it easier to sharpen over time for those who would use this knife. And yes, even at the $342 price point, people still do use these, and I would have liked to have seen that just for more longevity over the lifespan of the knife. Ultimately, not a whole lot to complain about here, either in the design language or in the manufacturing. Again, that pocket clip could have been a little bit springier, but it's not, and there could have been jimping at the top, but there's not. I can definitely live with the thumb stud only on here because it is really good as far as thumb studs are concerned, and those thumb studs are ambidextrous as well. The pocket clip is not. It is right hand carry only. Sorry, lefties. But for all of those reasons, it is going to be getting a very solid 8 out of 10 for fit and finish. Now, we've gone through all of the categories. Let's recap. For materials, it got a 7. For ergonomics, an 8. For fidget factor, it got a 7. The lock is a 7, and fit and finish is an 8. If you add up all of those, it comes to a very decent high recommend. I can highly recommend this knife to just about anybody. I think that this is some design language that a lot of people would like. It gets to a 37 out of 50. So a high recommend from me, and it's going to put it in some good company like my Strider AR, the Strider AR, the Spyderco Yojimbo 2, the Best Tech Nixie. It's really, really good as far as knives are concerned. Is it a grail? No. But then again, not many knives are, and that's for a good reason. If you agree with me, let me know in the comments section down below. If you disagree with me, let me know in the comments section down below as well. Guys, if you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, boo-hoo, there is a button for you too. And if you want to see more grail or garbage rankings just like this, make sure you hit subscribe. I'm Rollshambo. I'll catch you on the flip side.